Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions. This is a daily pick-a-card reading for Christmas, December 25th. Merry Christmas, everybody. And the purpose of this reading is to give you just a brief piece of advice or to help guide your overall focus for the day. If you are looking for a longer, more detailed reading, please check out my channel. If you are new to pick-a-card readings, the way this works is that you'll choose one of the three piles here, and then click on the timestamp in the description to skip ahead to the reading you've selected. Now, if you do want to choose more than one card, that's totally fine. Follow your intuition here. There's likely to be some good reading or good advice in each reading, even if one pile is more accurate than the others. So I've also added 3 crystals here to aid in your selection, and today I've chosen a Christmas theme of green and red. So today we have Emerald, Carnelian, and Jade. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds of silence so that you can meditate on your choice if you wish, and once you have your choices in mind, go ahead and find the timestamp for your choice in the description below. So we're going to go ahead and start the 30 seconds right now. Okay, so if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and make your selection and scroll down to the description to find the timestamps for your card. So, for card number 1, if you chose Emerald, you have the King of Swords in the reverse, the 4 of Cups, and the 5 of Coins. Okay, so the King of Swords in the reverse. This indicates, the King of Swords is a fairly intellectual type of person, but he can at sometimes be a little bit manipulative or controlling of others, or just feeling a little bit too, I don't want to say cocky, that's too strong, but a little arrogant with his intellectualism or his intelligence or whatever. And he can be a little overbearing on others around him. So swords are, have 2 edges. There's a problem with going a little too far with thought with swords, and that kind of is rooted in this idea that thoughts are limited, because thoughts are basically a symbol for some reality, but the thought will never perfectly match the reality, and it's for the same reason that the map will never perfectly match the territory. Now you could say, well, this map is very perfect, I can find anything I want to on it. Well, yes, but you can find things on that map because you're able to recognize the difference between the territory and the map, right? So with thought, a lot of times we lose that distinction. We feel as though we know how something really is, and you never really know how something is, and the more sure you are about something, the more likely you're somewhat mistaken about it. So this can be, letting that intellectual side of you get a little bit out of control, So your crossing or challenge card here is this 4 of Cups, and 4 of Cups is like, he's already got 3 good cups there in front of him, and then there's like a miraculous another cup coming out of the sky here, and he's not even really seeing it. He's not interested. He's just a little bit apathetic about the situation, and that apathy may come from some kind of hardships, feeling like things are not right or haven't been fair. Or it could just be just a bad mood, a bad attitude from anything. It's not necessarily just a character flaw. It's not necessarily a bad person, but it one way or another, it's something that is a little bit got kind of down. It's this tendency to fall into this sort of cynical attitude. And your advice card here is this 5 of coins, which is asking you to remember that there is help available for you, that you don't have to be the biggest and best. You don't, it may feel good to be that way. It may feel good to do it all on your own, but we all need help from time to time. And it's actually to me, it's a stronger person who is able to recognize when they need help and ask for it, rather than letting their pride get in the way and just carrying on without. So this 5 of coins suggests that asking for help is available. There's definitely something there for you, if you just simply reach out and ask for it. It also has snow in this picture, so I'm going to say if you're in a region right now where it's snowing, play in the snow a little bit. There's your Christmas advice. And drink plenty of eggnog. We've got to add this Christmas theme somehow. Okay, so that's it for card number 1. So for card number 2, this is the Carnelian. If you chose it, you have the Queen of Swords, the 9 of Swords in the reverse, and the 8 of Coins in the reverse. So Queen of Swords is very intellectual. It's kind of cool. The last one we had the King of Swords, but this one we have the Queen. And she's intellectual as well, just like the King, except that the King is more projecting his ability, his intellectual prowess. He's projecting it outward, doing something with it, manipulating others. I use the word manipulation not necessarily in a negative context, but just playing the game with his mentality. He is, using his intelligence to sort of pull strings, to make things happen. The Queen, on the other hand, here is really kind of more introspective. She's using her intellect to figure out how things work. A lot of times it's more for her own curiosity, or just it's a lot more internalized. It's philosophy and science and that kind of thing, for the pursuit of knowledge, for the sake of knowledge, and not necessarily just to get some sort of an advantage in the world around her. So this is the student who, in the science classes, is really just interested in what she's learning. She's not just trying to get a degree because she wants to get a good job, right? So, it's more of the introspective knowledge or awareness. And this is representing you in this situation. So you've been thinking about something, working things out in your head. And you have this 9 of Swords in the reverse. And 9 of Swords represents a sort of anxiety that comes from really just overthinking, too much thought. And so, in the reverse here, you're coming out of that a little bit. You're understanding some things, but at the same time, there's this tendency for this nagging anxiety to sort of persist and come back from time to time. So, I feel like what's going on here is this is somewhat of a side effect of being a little bit more introspective and thinking about your role in the world and the way things are, perhaps, thinking about the effect that you have on the world around you. This can be like trying to work out virtue and behavior, and there tends to be a sort of like honesty about it, where you really want to know, you really want to do the right thing, and it can cause some anxiety to consider that you can't always do the right thing. You can't always do the most virtuous thing because of the way that society's set up and what it demands of you, right? So if you get too much in your own head about that kind of thing, it can cause anxiety, just the way that it is. Pretty much everything that we do, if you don't think about it, and most people don't, it's fine. But the second you start thinking about it too deeply, it starts to bother you. Things like eating meat. But if you went through a meat meat-packing plant, it would just horrify you, and you may never eat meat again, right? So, so this is, that's the kind of idea here, is that you're recognizing that there's this whole world of things that you hadn't necessarily considered, and when you start thinking about them, it can cause a little bit of ill feelings and all that, but there's a way out of it, and the way out of it is through action, right? So 8 of coins here, in the reverse. 8 of coins is a very diligent, hardworking energy, very effective, efficient energy, and it's all about work. It's all about doing, and especially among the coins, because wands represent action and all that, but this 8 of coins, this person is really hard at work, at some sort of craft. He's really wrapped up in, his heart's in it. It's not just about wealth and all that. His heart's really in this thing. And in the reverse here, it could be that you're devoting a little bit too much time to just like thinking about all these things, and then you can kind of drive yourself nuts doing that, because there's really no end to the different ways that you can define yourself as some sort of an oppressor to somebody else. Everything that you buy, if you buy something that's made in China, you can say it's contributing to an oppressive government in China, or, whatever. And some of these things kind of depend on your political views. But the fact remains that if you really think about it, pretty much everything you do can in some way be seen as oppressive to somebody or something else. Even trying to be a vegetarian, it's like, well, plants are alive too. So it might be a little bit horrifying to recognize that the only way that you stay alive is by feeding on the life of something else. And that's, in a way, that's horrific. It's terrifying. And you may say, well, it's better for plants than animals and all that. But, personally, I think a life is a life. And not everybody agrees with me there, but that's okay. The point of it is that the way that you get out of all of this action is by devoting yourself to a cause that you really care about. And instead of just being stuck in all the thinking, do something. And the problem is you can't do everything. If you try to do everything, you'll stumble into a whole nother lesson, and when you start having difficulty there, come on back to the channel and we'll work out what's going wrong. But you can't do everything. You have to select something that you want to tackle, and it doesn't mean that you don't have your opinions about things and you don't share them when asked, but you have to sort of focus on something to accomplish really anything. Just being a Facebook warrior doesn't really get a whole lot of things done. And you might think it does, but really, realistically, it's so much better if you can actually participate in some sort of a cause instead of just giving lip service to every cause, or using it as something to essentially boost your ego, to say, well, look, I believe all the right things. Well, yeah, but are you doing all the right things, And that's the real test. So the advice here is to definitely try to find a place for enhanced action, a more efficient action, rather than just simply getting stuck in your thoughts or stuff like that. That can cause a considerable amount of anxiety. So if you find yourself having anxiety, just remember that that really comes from over association with identity, and worrying about what's going on instead of actually putting any sort of action into it. And trying to keep this in with the Christmas theme, this 8 of coins guy also looks very much like he's decorating. So make sure you have some decorations around for Christmas. It's not too late. Put up a stocking, some tinsel, something like that. And she looks like she's still awake because she's not sure Santa Claus is going to remember to come to her parents' house instead of her house, right? So we have to tie everything into Christmas, just so you know. Okay, so that's it for card number 2. All right, so for card number 3, we have this little Jade kitty. And if you chose it, you're going to have this Knight of Cups in the reverse. That's the Lovers in the reverse. And then you have the Star. Okay. All right, so Knight of Cups in the reverse. This is, Knight of Cups is a very, very romantic sort of character. And he's very go with the flow. And he lets go. He's not afraid to just sort of let loose, have a good time, and not care so much about where things are going. He lives a little bit more in the moment. Now, this is in the reverse, so in one way or another, you're resisting this kind of energy. So either there's somebody around you who's kind of approaching you with that more, carefree type of energy, and you're not very receptive to it, or you're just not very receptive to having this energy in yourself, right? So whether there's a sort of love interest or not, or that kind of thing, in one way or another, the defining mark here is that you're resisting that type of thing. You kind of want to know what's going on. You want to define things. You want to have an idea of where this is headed. And that interferes with that sort of almost careless energy, but like a careless romantic, right? Because romance is sort of directly derived from that. And the key to it is, it's like with a really, really romantic endeavor, it's you don't even have to stop and worry about where it's going. You're just so fully in that present moment. You're so drawn to it. It's so magnetic that your mind is not really even able to wander, because you're fully encapsulated in that moment, right? So that's kind of a defining aspect of romance. And if you're too caught up in the thinking about things and worrying, or especially being like self-conscious, one really big killer of romance is a lack of self-confidence. And the most romantic relationships or encounters tend to be in a confident space, and that's not to say that there's not that sort of nervousness or butterflies, that kind of thing. That's something else entirely. But it's not feeling like you don't deserve to be with that person, or feeling like they're better than you, or they're out of your league, right? Those types of things are not conducive to romance so much. But that sort of like nervous in a good way thing is very different. That's just nerves, tingly excitement, right? But the Lovers card here in the reverse, the Lovers represents a sort of choice, or more specifically, the Lovers represents the idea that a relationship between lovers is not necessarily just something that happens naturally or effortlessly. It is something that, on the contrary, requires a great deal of effort. It requires a choice. And so in the reverse here, it's kind of, it's funny because these kind of have conflicting meanings here, but this is what's challenging you. So what's challenging you here is not making a sort of a choice, or resisting making a choice. And so I think what that means is you're kind of caught up in this idea of the future, or where is it going, or, like I said, not going with the flow, so to speak, because you want to make a bigger choice, right? Whereas you may be kind of like trying to go a couple steps ahead, jumping ahead a little bit, and what really is required is for you to make the choice that you're going to get involved with something to begin with. Instead of worrying about, well, where's it going, you have to make the choice to kind of have like this leap of faith to trust that this person has, good intentions in mind in the beginning. And that's what sort of opens you up to that more romantic energy, that more free-flowing, easygoing happiness, instead of being, calculating and things being planned out. There has to be some element of, I don't know where this is going, for it to be exciting. Would you ever read a book if you already knew the ending? Or would you like watching movies in reverse? No, you don't want to know the ending right away. You want to be able to, for there to be some mystery or something that is still a surprise, and otherwise it's like it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole thing, right? Some of that drama is a necessary part of it. Now, you may be scarred by the past in some way to where you went through something that makes you less inclined to be trusting or open or anything. So yeah, definitely pay attention, use your judgment, and pay attention to your intuition. But once you kind of have made a choice there, don't dither. Don't go back and forth on whether or not you should trust this person. It's like, either go for it or don't. That's what's really necessary for you to get involved in any sort of a romantic endeavor. And, you may be already in a relationship, and so this is really defining more of a dynamic between you and your partner. And if you're not in a relationship, this could be describing more of the way that you go about navigating that space. Now, your advice card here is the Star. And the Star is a really beautiful card about, she's pouring out one picture on land and one on water here, representing the conscious and the subconscious that she's kind of just pouring out, letting it go. And she's learning to trust the universe, to trust that things are going to work out okay, that things are going to be fine. She is, she's letting go, she's just falling into love and life and existence itself, and she's open to the opportunities that are around her. She recognizes that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always something to look forward through at the end of any experience. So she instinctively looks for the good aspects of a situation, and she orients herself toward that sort of northern star, right? And this is your advice card. So this is asking you to kind of adopt this sort of energy, this faith that things are going to work out, that everything's going to be fine. And there's such a relaxing release that comes with this card, with this energy. So there's a lot of very intimate meanings in each of these cards that you've selected here. So feeling is that it's strongly to do with relationships, interpersonal relationships, that kind of thing. And so, with this Star as well, it's asking you to find a way to just find some joy and some fulfillment out of your interaction with other humans, So that's about it for the reading today. And of course, tying that into Christmas, they followed the star to find Jesus's birthplace. So it's Christmas. Hey, the Christmas star. Anyway, that's about it for Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Well, not about it for Christmas, hopefully, but about it for the Christmas reading. And I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. And we'll see you again tomorrow for your next reading, back on a boring, regular day. Have a good one, everybody.